written long ago, about a kingdom on a mountain and the valley folk below. On the mountain was a treasure buried deep beneath a stone, and the valley people swore they'd have it for their very own. Go ahead and hate your neighbor, go ahead and cheat a friend, do it in the name of heaven, justify it in the end. Won't be any trumpets blowing come the judgment day, on the bloody morning after one tin soldier rides away. So the people of the valley sent a message up the hill, asking for their buried treasure, tons of gold.
Director of the Darcy McNichol Center for American Indian and Indigenous Studies here at the Newberry Library. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome all of you to the annual Darcy McNichol Distinguished Lecture as we honor the extraordinary scholarship and activism of Winona LaDuke. To begin, I'd like to acknowledge that Chicago has always been and will always be Indian country. And tonight, we are gathered here together on traditional Potawatomi territory. But I would like to also recognize all of our members of the Chicago American Indian and Indigenous communities who are here tonight. If you are comfortable, would you please stand? The Darcy McNichol Distinguished Lecture celebrates scholars, authors, and activists who consistently demonstrate excellence in their work concerning Indigenous peoples and histories, and who actively address contemporary issues faced by American Indian and other Indigenous communities. For more than 45 years, the Newberry Library and the Darcy McNichol Center have played an integral role in the encouragement and facilitation of path-breaking writing about American Indian and Indigenous peoples. And now we are delighted to count Winona LaDuke among the many authors and activists to contribute to our scholarly community. And now I'm pleased to introduce Newberry Library President Dr. David Spadafora, who will share a little bit about the activist foundation of our center and introduce our honored guest.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Newberry Library and here to what was this evening's program, as you heard from Patricia, is the third in the Darcy McNichol Distinguished Lecture Series, developed and presented by the Darcy McNichol Center for American Indian and Indigenous Studies here at the Newberry in partnership with Northwestern University with support from Gina and John Rowe. Under the leadership of Director Patricia Merriquin-Norby, the center is celebrating its 45th anniversary this year. Darcy McNichol, the center's founding director, whom this series honors, was, for those of you who don't already know, a distinguished anthropologist, teacher, writer of fiction, and activist, who grew up on the Flathead Reservation in Montana, and who played a central role in the American Indian Chicago Conference in 1961, and in the founding of the National Congress of American Indians. Much of the thinking behind the creation of our center came from Darcy McNichol. Tonight's speaker, Winona LaDuke, has received many honors for her work as an environmentalist and indigenous activist, including the Thomas Merton Award for Peace and Social Justice and a Reebok Human Rights Award. She also has been inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame, and Ms. Magazine named her Woman of the Year in 1998. I might add that she had a Darcy McNichol Fellowship at the Newberry Library in 1986. In 1996 and in 2000, she ran for Vice President of the United States.
Thank you again for the honor of being here tonight. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm a little rough. I just came in from Standing Rock. How many of you have been to Standing Rock? That's like the new big tourist location. The rest you gotta go. Just make sure you bring all your goggles and stuff, okay? So I live in Rosemary, and then my flight's a little late, so I just barely recombobulated myself. I like that word, recombobulate. Have you ever seen it at the Milwaukee airport? You ever seen that? Anyone seen that? When you fly just from to TSA, it has a sign that says recombobulation area. Yeah, just look when you fly from TSA. It's, yeah, not kidding. I was like, I have never seen that word except for here. But anyway, I've never actually presented a slideshow. I was working on it on the way down, so there might be a few gaps in it, and I'm not actually sure how to operate this. It's the pointy thing, yeah? Okay. But I want to say a little bit about where I come from, and then where I come from just now. So my reservation is in northwestern Minnesota, in Anishinaabe, one of 7 Anishinaabe reservations in the north. It's kind of between Bemidji and Fargo. Do y'all know where that? Y'all know where Minnesota is? Just checking, you know, and then I did just come from Standing Rock, and you know, so I want to talk tonight about the idea of making America great again. I have some ideas on that. I thought I'd lay them out. Yesterday I was, so these are some pictures from Standing Rock. This is from about a week and a half ago. That's your tax dollars at work if you're a North Dakota citizen, or maybe one of the 12 states, I think, that actually send cops. I'm not sure which cops those are. Spraying those people that are in the water. Kind of rough up there right now. I wasn't part of this one. And that's the use of the MRAP, which I just saw the first time at MRAP. It's called a mine-resistant armored personnel carrier. So mine-resistant, I've always thought that there might be a lot of landmines in North Dakota. So we should always have a mine-resistant armored personnel carrier at hand at all times. That's what they got out there. And this guy, Stutzman Kelly, I drove through that last night at about 10 o'clock, and I was driving my companion. He's driving the White Earth travel pickup truck with the expired plates on it. And I was the Indian girl that went in with the rental car. And I went in there and I went into like a gas station, and I looked, you know, I was super tired driving across the state late. I met with the lawyers and everything, and I looked down and I see these like totally like decked out cop guy in Stetson County, and I was like, boy, am I glad I have the rental car. So that's what it looks like out there, off and on. I just want to say that I did have a visit with one of our attorneys, our various attorneys, of which there are many, since there are about 450 people who've been arrested. Y'all follow this, right? Yeah. It's really something. It's like this. The reason that, you know, it's very important that we all talk about it, because it's this test of civil society. You know, to me, it's this question of where we're all going and how it's going to work out. And I really want to, you know, be grateful to those who are so courageous. I took a bunch of those young protectors to dinner last night. It was like their favorite auntie for a meal. And, you know, I was asking them, like, you know, one guy, Natani Means, Russell's son, he had been beaten up pretty bad by Hennepin County. The big tough guy, though, you know, but he's like, yeah, man, they really laid it to me. And then I was talking to this other guy, and I heard about his so this is what court is like. There's, I think there was 45 people that made their appearances here. And, you know, so Morton County, very conservative. You gathered that, right? Very conservative. I think it's a little out of touch with the rest of the world. But anyway, Morton County Court, this is what was heard in court. There's like 45 people in there, and one of these guys, Lakota guy, goes in there, and the judge says, he only speaks in Lakota. That's how it starts. He just talks in Lakota, he introduces himself in Lakota, and he talks. And then he says, the judge says, you know, starts talking to him, and he says, you know, he says something back in Lakota, and finally the judge says to him, you know, that English is the language of this court, and he said, Lakota is the language of this territory. I thought that was very interesting. about this Blackfeet guy who I know a little bit better, and his companion told me what he said, and then his lawyer told me the same thing. So this Blackfeet guy goes up, and he's in front of the judge, and the judge says, and he's only speaking Blackfeet, and the judge says, how do you plead to the charge of trespassing? He says, not guilty, it's stolen land. And then he says, the judge says, how do you plead to the charge of rioting? And he says, I cannot be rioting because I was praying. Very interesting moment in civil society. And so those who have not been up there, I'm asking you to consider coming. We could use a lot of people to come, even to Mandan for the court, the hearings. I really feel like, I live in northern Minnesota, and for many years I've been working, on a lot of issues up there in my area. But I went last year in January, and I go out there all the time. I want you to think I don't go to North Dakota. I go there all the time. But I went up there and I was at some meetings on. It wasn't on pipelines. It was on radiation standards. They had issued they increased the recommended daily allowances of radiation in North Dakota by a factor of 50 in order to accommodate fracking waste in municipal landfills. Really interesting health question there. So I went to this hearing, and I was like, at this hearing, and they said, I said, which is what I think is that, basically what I feel like is that, they said, where are you from? I said, Minnesota. I said, but the thing is that bad stuff starts over here and blows my way. And what I want to say is that America, I don't even like the term the Midwest. You should just know that. I always find that really perplexing because it's like the mid of what West. It's like this really abstract, weird construct. And part of what we need to talk about is this whole naming of America. But it's not, this is the Great Lakes. This is not the Midwest. That is what characterizes it, and that's the Northern Plains. It's really important to kind of rethink our geography of place, and that, but what happens is that people for the past 30 years have been flying over North Dakota. I know it because I do it all the time myself. They fly across and they say, well, it looks like North Dakota down there. And that's about it. And they're like, oh, I was there once, I heard about that movie Fargo, that's funny, so that's what's happened. And they had a depopulation for 50 years. It was really reflected well. I don't know if any of you read the Poplar's book called The Buffalo Commons. And they talked about 50 years of depopulation. There were some demographers from Rutgers. And they said, they kept losing people, and so we all kind of just watched it. And in the meantime, bad stuff started happening in North Dakota. So you have basically, we could call it a petro state, a lot of oil influence there. We call it the deep north. There, it's the Mississippi of the North. Anybody who puts dogs on Indians and puts, former tribal chair and president of the tribal college, Sitting Bull Tribal College, Ron, his horse's Thunder, he and his wife they were standing there, and they were arrested, and they were charged with rioting, and they were put in dog kennels for 9 hours. Anybody who puts people in dog kennels for 9 hours? That's kind of like, these are issues that Amnesty International is looking at. But what I'm saying is that we got to quit flying over North Dakota and saying, I hope that works out okay for y'all, because not working out. And it's this moment in time which I think we're watching. So I just, had to do a little preface. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But, as I reflected on what I was going to say, a lot of you are, obviously super thoughtful people, or you're here. And you're not out eating junk food someplace, so that's a good sign. But this is the art that our colleague was talking about in Manitoulin Island. This is, and I'd like to show this kind of art. How many of you have seen this kind of art? Okay, this is Anishinaabe art, and the reason I show this slide a lot is, if you look inside it, there's like these spirit lines that connect the beings. You can see them, and you can also see it's like X-ray. You can see inside the beings, right? And this is one of the things I like about this art is that, it's comes from our people, and it really has a lot to do with our spiritual practice and how we view things. And it did away Muganatuk, that we're all related, that are shown in this. You can see a lot of things in this art. But, as you heard from my introduction, I was an undergraduate at Harvard University. And, what happened there is that if you wanted to study the art of Europe, you went to the Fine Arts Department. If you wanted to study the art of Native America, you went to anthropology. And so what I want to say is that that is a whole valuation, and that I'm going to suggest that the Eurocentric worldview is not actually probably a good plan over the long haul. We might want to rethink some of that, and perhaps the answer to some of the problems is not within the same paradigm which has brought them forth. And that it is also possible that other people's knowledge will be very important as we figure out how we're going to go ahead. So I just want to say that, because I think that we learn a lot of things from a lot of people. I'm someone who learns from anybody, and we should be open-minded. And even as we think now, this month here is Kashkadno Jesus in our language. It means freezing over moon. Following Manitou Jesus, Moon's little spirit moon, Gishi Manitou Jesus, the great spirit moon, Maven Jesus, our sucker moon, Onabana Jesus, that's around March. We call that the hard-crusted snow moon, right? Freeze thaw, right? I say that because it's also the moon you don't want to do a face plant in the snow. But, all our moons, our maple syrupy moon, our Wabagana Jesus, our flower moon, if you hear those words, that's the same as the original language which named Chicago, it's Anishinaabe language, or Potawatomi language, our language is that. But, I thought you wanted to hear my language, but also, I don't know if you noticed that none of our moons is named after a Roman emperor. So what I'm trying to say is that it's possible that there's an entire worldview that has nothing to do with empire, and it'll be okay. Just let it go. Just let it go. As we think about making America great again, I just want to point this out. A couple of history lessons, but we won't be giving, I don't think we're getting invited to the White House anytime soon for history class, but what I want to say is that, if I want to say make America great again, I'm going to say let's go way back. Let's go OG. You know what I mean? I'm saying this is what I mean. You got huge agrobiodiversity in the northern plains. This area here is, actually the Missouri River, where we're all fighting over the fracking. That's the epicenter of northern agriculture, mandated and also the River people. There are tremendous agrobiodiversity in that territory. Here's some of it here. Here's some agrobiodiversity from, Hawaii. That's my friend Jerry Konanui. So, if I think about going back old school, I'd be thinking about something like, the time when there was 50 million buffalo, and the sound of a herd would resonate and would change the whole ecology of the system because of the power of those beasts, single largest migratory bird in the world. That's great. That's great. What's great is thinking about billions of passenger pigeons no longer here, but a sky would darken for a day, perhaps, as they flew over in the Central Flyway. That's great. That's great. Tremendous agrobiodiversity, fish throughout our area, and water that you can still drink, And what I want to say is where I come from, you can still drink the water from a lake. Northern Minnesota, you can still drink the water from a lake. And to me, that's worth everything, And so when I think about being great, I think about that, going back a little ways, And that's what we did, But we still got a lot of it. This is our wild rice. I did bring some wild rice because I always get, asked, did you ever bring rice? So we happen to sell pipeline-free wild rice. I just want to let you know. I spent 4 years fighting a corporation called Enbridge with a pipeline proposal they want to throw through our best wild rice beds. 4 years. 4 years. Went to every regulatory hearing. Went and intervened in every process, showed up, everywhere. And then in August this year, after 4 years, the Enbridge company announced that they had canceled the sand pipeline. Then Enbridge went and bought a third of DAPL, Dakota Access Pipeline, or I refer to it as the Dakota Access Pipeline. And they bought a third of that. And I had a little conversation with Enbridge today. I talked to this lady at first they sent out these people, they called them the Indian, well, they're the tribal relations specialists. We refer to them as the Indian whisperers. We burned through 2 of them and they got nowhere. It's super funny. I was like, we actually did a video on it, you can find it online, and we're just Indian whisperer. And then we graduated and we got the Indian listener. That's the one direct up there with the harmonica. You guys remember that movie of Michael Moore, Roger and Me? So I'm working on something like that. I don't have a movie. There's actually a movie about our battle that's coming out in the spring. But we're kind of working on something. The guy who's head of Edward just named Al. Al. So it's like I write him letters all the time. I'm like, hey Al, remember me? Remember that? Super funny. So now I'm almost directly talking to Al. So the Indian listener is like, what do you want Al to do today? I'm talking to him on the phone. I said, no, what Al needs to do is Enbridge needs to say that they're going to withdraw from Dakota Access because they don't like how Energy Transfer is acting. That they don't believe that people should have dogs put on them and should be locked up. But that they believe there should be a full environmental impact statement. That's what they should do. And if there's going to be a pipeline discussion, they should consider another route, which would be just north of Bismarck, which was the original route. But they threw that out so they could put it right by the Indians and not affect white people. That's what I said to Enbridge. We'll see what they come out with, you know. But I said a couple things to them, as you can imagine. I said, that's what you should do. I said, because, you don't want that on your record. Largest pipeline company in North America. And I said, we're not going to forget when you come over here for your proposals for Line 3. We won't forget what happened there. So this is what we fought for. And this is my lake a couple years ago, Big Grace Lake. And I just really like, I don't know if you can see this picture. This is a USAID bag of lentils that is now full of wild rice. And I'm really not sure how we got the USAID bags. I put our rice, you know what I'm saying? Don't you think that's kind of funny? Like the international trade thing, that's what rice looked like when it came in. And this is what agrobiodiversity looks like. That's our corn. That's Manitoba white flake corn. And this is what we would call a Mandan squash. This is what agrobiodiversity looks like, and this is what we're fighting for. That's a cool guy, huh? Okay, so this is our problem. I know that was all fun. We're going to talk a little about the problem here. That's what I do, but I'm an economist by training. So I spend a lot of time looking at dumb stuff. That's what I feel like, like what I'm trying to figure out is why would you squander all your natural capital in 50 years and then act like it's going to...
Instead of paying a fair price for oil, however, oil interests are far more interested in securing oil from places that do not wish to give up their oil.
Redskins, Braves, the Fighting Sioux, Eskimo pies and bread and tobacco, a billion insults.
I know y'all follow me on this? Yeah. Like that's a really bad idea. That's a really bad idea. To diminish the wealth of the creator in the natural world and think that that's going to work out for you. Like, what planet are you from? So I'm just going to talk about a little bit where we're at, the movement that's there, and where I'm thinking about it. So, how's that moving on its own? That's scary. Sorry. Just briefly, a few things, but this is where we're at pretty much. I'm 57. You guys, in my 50 years of life, I've had a pretty good time. I've consumed half the world's known fossil fuel resources. Y'all did it with me. Did you have a pretty good time? I mean, just admit it. It's been a blast, right? We got flowers from, Colombia the same day. Sometimes I actually have purchased that Fiji water just because I figure it's got to have the highest carbon footprint in the world. You know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying? It's like, it's crazy, the stuff that we're flying around, right? We got the, food thing. We've been driving around in these massive automobiles. We've created a society that's like super inefficient, super high consumption. 50 years, that's a lot of fossil fuels, right? So then when you get to that point where you consume 50 years of, you consume everything that's easy to get, and you live in a society that is like super hooked on it, basically, you end up in a situation where you end up like an addict. You know, and that's pretty much what we are. And I don't know, I have an addict, I have more than one addict in my family. I don't know if anybody has any addicts. My own personal addiction is caffeine. That's my one and only. But you know, I don't know if anybody have addicts, and addicts are kind of a drag. Did you ever notice that? Like they do stuff, they like do bad stuff. They like, you know, rationalize, right? They didn't do it, you know, they lie, sometimes they steal, they're jerks, they don't get their addiction. And basically, I feel like that's what we've become as a society, you know? I feel like, you know, we've consumed all this, and we have an economy that is predicated on an addiction to fossil fuels. And it's not necessary to have an economy that's predicated on an addiction to fossil fuels, but that's what we got. And in that process, when you can't get your fix, you start doing bad stuff, invading countries, you know, and then engaging in what one would call extreme extraction, which is where we're at now. It's extreme behavior, that's what addicts do. So extreme extraction is, you know, blowing off the top of 500 mountains in Appalachia, right? And not even using that coal here anymore. We're closing down coal plants. We're like shipping that stuff over to India, right? That's like crazy stuff, right? Drilling 20,000 feet into the ocean and hoping that that's going to work out, right? My personal feeling is that 20,000 feet into the ocean is where mermaids live. That's what should be down there. You know what I'm saying? It's like the deep, the dark. They shouldn't be down there. That's not our business, right? I just look at, you know, and even though it doesn't work out, that's why I got the Deepwater Horizon, right? It didn't work out, right? And then you do crazy stuff like this here. That's fracking. That's Texas from the air. That don't look like it's working out too well. And then I think I had this, I wonder if I had my weird graph. Yeah, I don't know, it's in here someplace. I was messing around with these charts, but the thing about fracking, aside from being extreme, you put 602 chemicals down and then blow up the bedrock of Mother Earth, is that the average, you know, it's the bottom of the barrel when you're fracking, right? It's the bottom of the barrel. And so an average fracking well is about 4 years. So they have to keep opening up new wells, which is why it's so capital intensive, so expensive, right? You know, and that's why it's super, you know, crazy and aggressive too. This is how far it can go. And then the other thing that you do is the tar sands. So this is what we're looking at. You guys have got this in here. You know, we got a lot of infrastructure for oil companies and new infrastructure coming in for oil companies. This is, and this is what happens with your climate change. So you got bad behavior, you got fossil fuels slathered over everything, pretty much. You know, my personal feeling is that if it says side on it, you shouldn't put it on food. You know, fungicide, herbicide, pesticide, you know, side, last bit, that same thing as homicide, childicide, suicide, right? This is side. I just don't feel like you should put it on food. And so this is what's happening, and you know, unless you've been watching too much stuff, you know, Fox News, this is what's going on in the world. And then the ocean is getting acidified because the CO2 is ending up in the ocean. Oh yeah, here it is, the Dakota excess pipeline. You see that chart? This is like what geeky people like me do. Well, there's a lot of geeky people in here. But you see, I don't know if y'all understand this, but this is a Bakken well. What I'm trying to point out is that you have high production until you're 5 and then it crashes. You see that? That's what I'm saying. And the reason that this is kind of important in the present national debate that we have on the Dakota excess pipeline is that right now there's 900,000 barrels a day of oil coming out of North Dakota, the Bakken. 900,000 barrels a day, right? It's like 923,000. But it's busted. It's busted in the Bakken. There's abandoned man camps. There's no, it used to be full of drilling rigs, couldn't drive anywhere. Super crazy. Not there. Bomb trains are all split up with other trains. You know what I'm saying? It's not usually full-on bomb trains anymore. I don't know, you guys still get some full-on bomb trains here? Yeah. We see, this is all like excessive crazy. Like, why do you want to move all that crazy stuff around? You know, that's what my grandfather would say. Why do you want to do that? You know, just a common sense question. But, you know, so there's 900,000 barrels a day right now in the Bakken. And according to Lynn Helms, he's the North Dakota Sahara Energy. Lynn Helms and North Dakota reports that in 2019 there will be 900,000 barrels a day of oil coming out. So what I'm trying to say is that The 900,000 barrels a day that is coming out of the Bakken is already coming out of the Bakken. It's either in a pipeline or in a train. And pipelines don't replace trains because trains go to different destinations than pipelines, right? They all got it somehow worked out, their customers and their, you know. So to say that if you put in new pipelines, you aren't gonna have bomb trains is not true. It's not true at all. It's kind of the Kool-Aid that the oil industry and the politicians want you to drink. So the point is that if there's 900,000 barrels a day that's already going out, and there's 900,000 barrels a day supposed to go out in 2019, what are you going to do with a 570,000 barrel a day pipeline? That's how much that Dakota, that's why I call it Dakota excess pipeline. There's not oil to fill that pipeline coming out of North Dakota. Frankly, the only place you could probably fill that pipeline out of is out of the tar sands. So what they just got to do is hook up to Tioga and bring it down. So it's kind of like Keystone Light. That's what you're looking at. And I just want to point out that we did defeat that pipeline, Keystone. And I don't know if you all noticed this, but they also defeated a big pipeline in Canada this summer. I don't know, I think it's Death, and then it goes in, it's called the Northern Gateway. Pipeline of tar sands oil away to British Columbia. In July, the Canadian Appeals Court ruled that the permits were all pulled from the Enbridge Company. That's my old pals there, the Indian listener. The Enbridge Company pipeline permits all pulled because they did not consult with Native people. You know, my feeling is that this is not 1890, this is not 1920, this is 2016. There are a lot of Native and Indigenous people in the room, and I feel like this is North America. We're not third-class citizens, we are first-class citizens. So this is what the models look like, and then this is part of the solution. So what I want to say is that, you know, we're facing this social, political crisis of, you know, and an economic crisis. You know, like I said, I'm an economist by training. I did a briefing for the Scandinavian banks yesterday after I walked out of a hearing in Standing Rock. Hey, look at that. Isn't that tricky that does that without me, huh? Okay, must be a timer or something, so it'll be on. But, you know, I said, I know you guys are going to go home and you're going to say, man, that woman knows a lot about pipelines. This is not my goal in life. Really. I just kind of want to grow cool corn, ride my horses, write some books, you know what I mean? That's like my plan. But I end up in this pipeline thing. It's like I could win a couple pipeline trivia contests right now. But, you know, coming out of that hearing, and I was talking to these banks in Scandinavia, and I said, you know, this is what you call a waste of money. It's called a stranded asset. You're going to put a whole bunch of money into something, and in about 5, 8 years, we'll be working on it. Waste of money. Waste of money. I buy a big piece of junk. Shouldn't do it. That's where we're at. In our prophecies as Anishinaabe people, they talk about that this is the time of the seventh fire. So they call it the time of the seventh fire. And in that time, they say that we as Anishinaabe people, our prophets told us this a long time ago, we'd have a choice between two paths, they said. They said one path would be well-worn, but it'd be scorched. They said the other path would not be well-worn, and it would be green. And it would be our choice upon which path to embark, which beacon in. That's a prophecy they had a long time ago for our people. I'm pretty sure that's where we're all at. We're all at that. Cannot combust ourselves further to oblivion. Cannot make it so that there's no water to drink. You know, cannot poison everything. Got to make a choice. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what that choice looks like. This is an Earth Lodge. This is my favorite. We can't build these on the Army Corps land because they're permanent structures. So I bought a yurt, Mongolian yurt. It's kind of like the version of an Earth Lodge. These are some, you know, this is kind of what sustainable housing should look like in the Northern Plains. Heavily insulated. Oh, you know, that's a cool thing. This is what the future looks like in terms of renewable energy. This This is Danae's solar project. I worked on this project about 6 years ago. 25 kilowatts on that library there. We used money that came out of Mojave Generating Station. They closed down because they're too dirty. LA Power and Light, Southern California Edison, closed them down. They had this money that was sitting in this fund. We matched it, we put that up. You know what I'm saying? This is like, that's what the future looks like. This is what we're still facing, those oil pipelines. We're looking at line 3 now. But this is the future. You know, it looks a lot more like this. So, you know, as I look at what they're proposing at the Dakota Excess Pipeline, the $3.9 billion pipeline that they're spending all their money on, you know, is in the face of a lack of infrastructure on the northern, you know, on the Standing Rock Reservation. The road that is blocked, 1806, doesn't even have a shoulder on it. You lose people every year on that road. You know, we should have a shoulder on a road in a first world country that's that heavily traveled. Their hospital was built in the 1960s. They have 4 doctors for 8,000 people. 2 years ago, when Debbie Dogskin froze to death in her house, couldn't afford to pay her heating bills, 100 miles from the Bakken. You know what I'm saying? That's America. That's what we're dealing with. That's what we're dealing with. So, you know, we did a little math on Earth, our organization. I call them our math program. They're like doing all the numbers of some funnies. So, for $3.9 billion, instead of buying a pipeline from nowhere, but they're talking about energy self-sufficiency. You could spend, with $3.9 billion, you could put 5 kilowatts each of solar on 64,629 homes. Okay, plus you could build 323 2-megawatt wind turbines. Not bad, huh? And I got this 161 retrofits. I think it's 116,100 retrofits, $8,000 each, you know, to make your house a little bit more efficient, right? Well, so to me, that's is where we go, where we're at. You know, and in a lot of ways, Standing Rock's story is really America's story. Because we're a country with a D in infrastructure. The Standing Rock probably has a D minus, F plus, I don't know. You know, you can make some big changes. You know, people say that can't make renewable energy work because we can't meet present demand. I always say, why would you want to? 57% of the power is wasted between point of origin and point of consumption. You know, in northern Minnesota, there's this really great power plant up there. In Valley, there's mining projects up there. And they wanted to get some coal from northern Cheyenne, and I was looking at one of those power plants, and I said, that power plant is 82 years old. That's as old as my mother is. I said, my mom's in good shape, you know, but I really feel like an 82-year-old coal generator might be a little outdated. That's where you lose all that power, is in that old infrastructure, right? You know, so this here from what's living in the labs, those, you know, super left-wing people. You know, aging infrastructure, old things, trying to that whole economy of scale, moving it really far, and power lines that lose a bunch of power by the time they get there. You know what I'm saying, right? What you need is local and efficient. That's what you need. You know, 3 to 5 times as many jobs in local and efficient as in these other things. And, you know, we were talking about that car thing, and I'll just tell you that story in a minute. So this is a movie that just came out. Didn't you see this movie, The Seventh Fire? Okay. She's like, what's she going to say about it? That's my village. Is that where you're from, up there in Teton? Okay, so this is a movie called The Seventh Fire, and I introduced the movie at a couple of film festivals. It was filmed in the village of Pine Point. It's about a couple of guys, you know, kind of hustlers, did a lot of drugs, went to prison. You know, I've been rethinking it. We could, you know, some people might refer to it as poverty porn. Is that what it's called when you want to do a movie about somebody, about how tough it is, you know, and then you kind of like, but it has like no context, right? The movie has no context, you know? But this is what they're showing, and it's been, you know, like a lot of film festivals, a lot of getting, because they have a lot of access, those filmmakers. So the film's called The Seventh Fire. It was not rightly named because that's not what the Seventh Fire prophecies follow, what's in their film. And our teachings just have this choice between two paths, you know, one well-worn and one scorched. So, you know, in my community, I live in the woods, you know, on a lake, I have a good gig. But my village is this village, you know, where my grandchildren live and my daughter live there. And I, you know, you guys hung out with me, I have no idea how long I've been talking, but you know, I'm like, I'm good, but you can't like go into the village and see that all the time. And then go hit your plane and go see the Newberry Library. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it doesn't work to like come home and see the same thing over and over. It doesn't work. You know, so I've been working there. I work nationally, but we decided we're just going to throw down to this one village and see if we can make a difference. You know, because to me it means something if somebody gets some home.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
Yeah, this is my daughter.
Say hi to everybody. Miss LaDuke here, watching the Americans. If you have just 2 minutes. Wait, I want to talk about seeds really fast, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, sorry guys. We'll get back to seed slavery next week.
Seed slavery is all wrong. Don't do it. Take care of your seeds, take care of your plants. Seeds have got possibility, and it's all about life. Take care of them and let them get enslaved.
Miss LaDuke, welcome to Chicago. Have a safe trip back. Keep watching Bad Americans.
Go ahead and hate your neighbor. Go ahead and cheat a friend. Do it in the name of heaven. Justify it in the end. While the trumpet's blowing, come the judgment day. On the bloody morning after, one tin soldier rides away. So the people of the valley sent a message up the hill, asking for the buried treasure, tons of gold for which they'd kill. Came an answer from the kingdom, with our brothers we will share all the sea.